pull a little bit to get the pressure distally and wrap around, and then you're going to capture it on the bottom with your thumb. Okay, so my hand is kind of encircling the patient's limb. That's why it only works for smaller limbs for me, or depending on how big your hand is. And then I'm going to come back up and capture in that end again. And again, I can put a fair amount of pressure here, but then I have to be careful because I've got to hold it, otherwise the whole thing's going to fall down on me, right? I could do that several times, or at this point in time, this is the one time I do allow a fold. I do a 45-degree fold right there. And now what I can do is I can start to do my figure 8. Okay. I have to be really careful to still hold on so that I capture that.
Jesus. Sorry.
Okay. But now I can get my corners. And if you can just hold your arm right there for me. And now you can see that I have gotten that very hard to get end spot that some people are having trouble with. Okay. And I got a fair amount of pressure on there. And now I can concentrate on the corners. Now, the other advantage here, I have a very small limb, and I'm using a much narrower wrap, okay? And this wrap is a new wrap, so it's got lots of give to it. When you start using worn-out wraps, they won't conform as easily, and then you'll tend to get more of that kind of, that kind of an effect as you go around, which you don't want, okay? So I can just finish this out. If this was a longer wrap, I could do more. Oh, it's one of those. Okay. And so now try to open up your fingers. Well, she can, but it's challenging. Okay, there's a fair amount of pressure there. So this is called the redundant wrap because you're going back and forth and back and forth. So it's redundant material. Okay. But the real trick with that is because you are pulling it, you need to make sure you have anchored it. Because otherwise, if you let go, it's all just going to kind of slingshot off the patient, okay? And so it works well for small limbs. But for like an AK, some of you will really want to use this because that's really hard to get that very distal end. But to go around an AK limb and hold it in place is tricky. So you could maybe gain your patient's help and say, hold this for me, okay? But then you have to be very coordinated because you have to like get the wrap and get underneath their hand before they let go, so it may or may not work. But this works very well for small limbs. And if you're having trouble getting that very distal piece, maybe you can incorporate part of this in. Rob was talking about how somebody showed him where he starts and goes this way over the distal end and then starts his figure 8 from there. And that's fine with me too. The one thing you want to think about though is you want several layers on the distal end. Okay, one time on that distal end is not enough to get the pressure that you want. And because we're doing this figure 8, we're going up several times up here. So even though you're not pulling tightly there, just by nature of having so many layers here, you're going to need more layers here to make sure you've got the pressure gradient right, so you're driving the fluid up. Okay, is that uncomfortable?